Ladies and gentlemen, here I am, finally joined with none other than Mr. Jose Escamilla. How are you?
Fine, George. It's finally good to be here, man. You know?
Yeah, of course, we had planned that once before, and fortunately things didn't quite work out on my end.
Yeah, and then I totally couldn't get on the show that, the marathon that you recently had, and then now I'm 10 minutes late. Jeez, man.
That's okay. You're also 3,000 plus miles away, so, it's understandable. Well, first of all, which would you like to discuss first? Your upcoming movie, the Rods phenomenon?
Let's start with the rods.
Alrighty. First of all, what are they? Or do you know?
We don't know. We think it might be some kind of an organism or a life form of some kind. They surely have the kind of behavior that, that a living creature would have. However, I've seen, there's a pretty bizarre thing that I saw, and this can be checked out on YouTube. It's really cool. I'll try to find it here real quick. But, in the 80s, there were the Gulf Breeze sightings, remember?
Yep.
Gulf Breeze, there was a ton of sightings back then. Late 80s, early 90s. And there's one particular video clip that really struck me. And I'm looking for it here on YouTube so your listeners can check it out themselves. There was this shot of a metallic sphere that's hovering right above a person's roof, near the top of the house.
Right.
And it's just hovering there, and it's really cool looking. It's real clear. Must have been shot at a high shutter setting because the clarity of the sphere, you can detect it's metallic, and it's just a real awesome clip. But what happens next is it starts off like in a split second, it just vanishes. It takes off sort of at an angle. And guess what? The sphere turns into a rod shape. It turns into a dark rod shape that appears to have the undulations, the fins along the sides.
Interesting. That's the first time I've heard of that one. All the ones that I've seen and all the videos that I've seen and photos were all strictly just raw. They never morphed or changed into anything or from anything.
Yeah, I never would have imagined. Here it is right here. I just found it. I believe this is it. And just looking at this Gulf Breeze footage for a TV show that this person was commenting on. And this doggone thing, man, it just takes off. And in slow motion, they did it a slow motion rendering of it, and you can clearly see it. I'm going to, there it is. I'm going to send it to you. It's downloading.
Okay.
I'm going to send it to you right now on Facebook. Okay, there you are, and boom. Check it out. It's really amazing. For all we know, we're going to be looking at these things, and when they take off, maybe we're looking at a sphere, a spherical object that makes the rod shape because it's going so fast that even on a high shutter setting, it creates an elongated blur. They're going so fast. It's amazing. So it's a mystery. We don't know what these things are. For all we know, they're round-shaped spheres that are traveling so fast, they create this rod shape.
Now, I understand in the video that I watched today that you were in, I can't think of the name of it, but it was a special that you were on. One of the people who is now doing some investigation regarding these actually said that he's seen them actually go pass through walls and roofs and such things.
Yeah, I've seen, I was on an airplane coming back from Tennessee back in 98, 97, 98. And we stopped off in Dallas for a small layover, and we were left inside the plane. They didn't let us out. We just stopped for a little bit, and I guess we got some food or something. Off, and this was about 6:37 in the morning, okay, when we took off, and we're all airborne. And everybody's kind of just dozed off. Everybody's asleep. And I'm just sitting there. A few other people are awake, There's people in front of me. and this rod comes in through, not through the window, but through the canopy. And I see it, plain as day. It's a dark rod. It just goes zip, passes right in front of these people's faces. And I see it go into the floor. And I'm thinking, man, I feel like that guy, like William Shatner in that Twilight Zone movie. He looks out the window and there's this creature breaking up the airplane's engine. And nobody else sees it, just me. So, of course, I didn't say anything. It's just that I go, man, I'll be doggone, man. This thing just came through and flew through, And I know I wasn't imagining or seeing things. It was a real sighting, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And, it just awestruck me, and, it just kind of turned my thought about what we're seeing here, what we're experiencing with these rods phenomena. Maybe they're interdimensional type things growing up.
When did you first discover them?
On March 19th, 1994, over Midway in Roswell, New Mexico. That was the first time I filmed anything, and I thought, when I was looking at them through the viewfinder, I thought they were insects at first.
In a lot of the video footage, up until I'd spoken with you, that's kind of what I thought is, maybe it was just a blur. But then when you see it frame by frame, it doesn't. It's obviously not a blur anymore, because if you see it frame by frame, it's clear as day as to what it is.
It's definitely something else, and that's one of the things that we did back in '94. Before I even made an announcement, for anybody to check out the rods phenomenon, I waited till December 25th before I mentioned rods. And I had already been on hard copy sightings, different, types of TV shows, presenting our UFO encounters that we had there at Roswell. And the reason we waited, because we wanted to test things out. All right? We did different camera settings, different tests, because at first we thought they were insects,
Right.
But we started shooting at the higher shutter settings. Insects are insects. You can tell. And when you go frame by frame, you can see the wings. No blur, because it's a high shutter setting. Frame by frame. No influence, because you're shooting at a higher shutter setting. And that's when we realized, wow, there's an insect, there's a bird, and what is this thing,
Right.
That's how we discovered the rods phenomenon. And they're not video artifacts, man. There's a lot of debunkers, and even that TV show Monster Quest, where they definitely did a big debunking effort by deliberately shooting at night, which I always tell people, don't shoot at night, because you compromise your shutter settings on your camera. When you shoot at night, you have to put your camera at the lowest shutter setting. Anything you can put in front of it will blur.
Right.
No matter how fast or slow it's going to blur. It's going to cause a motion blur. But Monster Quest, when they did the high-speed camera test, which everybody saw Monster Quest, and they go, oh, that's all it is, just insects. Well, they lied to the American public. Because if Monster Quest would have been honest in their tests, they would have shot it in broad daylight. They never consulted me. They deliberately never sent me a script. I didn't know what they were doing with the show. They told us that the script was top secret, and they didn't do that with people. And I go, that's BS, man. But if they would have consulted me about doing the high shutters, the speed camera test, I would have forced them to do it in broad daylight. And then set the camcorder at high shutter setting, the results would have been totally different. But they chose to debunk it rather than do a truthful investigation. So one of these days, when I get my hands on this Tiger Woods footage that exists, it's high-speed, 5,000 frames per second footage that CBS filmed of Tiger Woods swing. There's a white rod that passes right through the scene in super slow motion. When I get my hands on that footage, George, it's going to be it's going to prove that rods exist. And at that point in time, I'm going to take History Channel and Monster, because I'm going to sue them for lying, for defaming my character, man, trying to make me look like a fool. But that's how angry I am at Monster Quest, man, because they lied to the people, man.
Which is very understandable. When they're deliberately, they're supposed to be out there trying to find the truth or help to find the truth, and when they're doing just the opposite, and also, defaming you, obviously they're not doing what they claim they're doing.
Yeah, they libeled me, man, because after that Monster Quest thing came out, I started getting death threats from people calling me a liar and a scammer and all that kind of stuff. There's people on on websites like Above Top Secret that are deliberately, calling me a charlatan, a thief, a liar, and all that kind of stuff based on what Monster Quest did. So that's been very harmful to me. There's damages right there incurred, and it's libelous, man. And they're attacking me, and I sometimes get people that are real nasty to me. That's why sometimes I just get angry.
Which is understandable.
Going on, we can move on.
Now, I understand that there have been depictions actually in ancient cave paintings as well of pictures that are at least similar.
Yeah, petroglyphs would have cave drawings of these things. I always tell people, hey, if you were drawing a picture of a rod on a napkin in a bar or something, it would look like this cave drawing. And curious thing, back in '94 when I was at Mesquite, Nevada, at one of the conferences, there was a guy there that was presenting Aboriginal UFO art,
Right.
Aboriginal, from 15, 20,000 years ago, cave drawings. And I was sitting there in the audience, because I was presenting there, and I was sitting there, and he said that until after he saw my Rod's presentation, he thought that these stick figures and these arrows that they were tossing into, or these spears they were tossing into the air that had what appeared to be feathers on both sides of the spear.
Okay.
It looked like these people were throwing. He says he thought they were throwing these spears with the feathers along both sides. And he says that's not what it is. Now that I've seen the rods, he says these stick figures were pointing at these things that had wings on both sides of the torso. So he said that was probably the earliest rods cave drawings, and that was like 15 to 20,000 years ago.
Oh, wow. They've definitely been around a while then.
Yeah, I've been looking for that same photograph, and God, this was so many years ago, I forgot the guy's name that presented there. I didn't think of contacting him, at first. Then a few years later, I go, there was this guy. And I tried contacting the people that did the conference. They said, we don't remember who he was, and that kind of stuff. So somewhere out there's a petroglyph, Aboriginal art, cave art, and there's these stick figures pointing at rods.
On the video in question that I mentioned that I watched today, it's a 4-part one that I found on YouTube that you were in.
Yeah.
I forget which part, but I posted that on Facebook this afternoon for everybody to watch, and in that it actually shows the cave paintings, the depictions.
Yeah, I think that's the Fox Network show that I did, I think, or one of them. But those pictures are some cave drawings, but then there's those rocks that are in Argentina.
Okay.
That are over 1,000 years old, and they show what appear to be rod shapes.
Now, of course, I believe Monster Quest spent most of their time out in the field somewhere, and then the rest of the time they were at that cave, I believe was down in Argentina, where they do the cave jumping.
Yeah.
Now, have you had a chance to go down there and do any filming?
I've gone to that cave 5 times.
Any luck?
I've been to the cave. It's called the Cave of the Swallows. I've been there 5 times. Back in 1999 and 2000, up to 2002. I traveled there 5 times with different TV news crews, and we always captured rods coming in and out of there. Amazing.
If somebody wanted to try and film them themselves, what would you recommend they do?
First thing, take your camera and set it to manual, not auto.
Okay.
And then set your camera shutter setting at the highest. I think some of today's cameras have a shutter setting of up to 15,000, which, in other words, that's not 15,000 frames per second. It's 15,000 cycles of light, I guess, something like that. I'm not too proficient on the technicality, but all I know is that you get more light in the camera. And when you film something at 15,000 shutter setting, when you rewind it, let's for an example, film a baseball pitcher pitching the ball at 120 or 90 miles an hour, all right? And you film it at 15,000 shutter setting. When you rewind the tape and you go frame by frame, you're going to see the ball in its perfect form. You're not going to see an elongated blur.